Late-night security cameras, blurry figures moving under cold fluorescent lights, ordinary moments captured in motion, yet within hours, each one of them would simply disappear. No warnings, no explanations, just haunting final images. Images that raised more questions than answers. These are 5 people caught on CCTV moments before they vanished forever. Story 1. In 2014, in the heart of Washington, D.C., 8-year-old Relisha Rudd slipped into a mystery that still troubles investigators today. Her final confirmed moments were captured on hotel CCTV. Quiet, routine, almost unremarkable, yet those brief seconds became the doorway to a disappearance no one has been able to explain. Life inside the city's largest homeless shelter had always been unstable for Relisha, but nothing suggested she would become the center of a nationwide investigation until she vanished. Relisha Rudd was born on October 29, 2005, into a family experiencing chronic housing instability. She lived with her mother, Shamika Young, and her brothers at the D.C. General Homeless Shelter. Despite the difficult environment, Relisha was known for being bright, playful, and affectionate. Teachers described her as a child who loved school, enjoyed drawing, and easily connected with adults she trusted. But growing up inside the shelter meant constant movement, unfamiliar faces, rotating staff, and limited supervision. One of those adults became a trusted figure in her life, a shelter janitor named Khalil Tatum, someone she encountered regularly and who her family allowed into their world. Relisha's disappearance unfolded gradually because, at first, no one realized she was missing. In late February 2014, school attendance officers noticed she had missed several days of class. Her absence was explained with handwritten notes claiming she was under the care of a Dr. Tatum. That illusion fell apart when a social worker tried to meet this doctor and discovered no such person existed. On March 1st, 2014, hotel CCTV recorded the final confirmed sighting of Relisha. The footage shows her calmly walking beside Khalil Tatum inside a Holiday Inn Express in Northeast D.C. She isn't carrying luggage. She doesn't appear distressed. She simply walks beside a man she seemed to trust. Days later, Tatum's wife was found deceased. As police intensified the search, Tatum himself was discovered with a self-inflicted fatal injury, but Relisha was nowhere to be found. Her disappearance soon became national news, and with so much time already lost, the timeline grew more difficult to piece together. Authorities launched extensive searches across Washington, D.C., including the Kenilworth Park and Aquatic Gardens, where Tatum was located. Boats, search dogs, volunteers, and investigators combed the area, but no trace of Relisha emerged. Over the years, investigators have considered several possibilities. Some believe Relisha may have been harmed around the time of Tatum's death. Others think she may have been hidden or taken advantage of by individuals connected to him. There's also a theory that someone in Tatum's circle may have relocated her, intentionally or unknowingly concealing her whereabouts. And finally, the most painful possibility that the truth may never be fully known because the only person who understood what happened is no longer alive. Despite interviews, public pleas, and more than a decade of leads, the case remains open. Relisha's family continues to live with uncertainty. They hold vigils every year, honoring a cheerful child who deserved safety and protection. Her grandmother continues to speak publicly, urging the community to remember her. Police keep an active file, and her photo remains on missing children registries nationwide. For her family, hope still exists, however small. What if Relisha trusted someone she believed was helping her? What if the truth remains locked away with the only person who knew where she went? Story 2. In the early hours of a quiet September morning, a young RAF gunner walked alone through the streets of a British market town. CCTV captured each of his steps as he wandered into a shadowed loading area, then kept recording as he never walked back out. What followed became one of the most debated disappearances in modern UK history. No one imagined that a simple night out would end in a mystery that still divides investigators and family members. Nearly a decade later, Corrie James McKeague was born on September 16, 1993, in Perth, Scotland, the middle of three brothers in a close-knit family. They described him as funny, outgoing, and always full of energy. He had a bold sense of humor and an adventurous streak that made him instantly likable. At 19, Corrie joined the Royal Air Force Regiment and was stationed at RAF Honington in Suffolk, England. He quickly earned a reputation as a dedicated serviceman who enjoyed the strong friendships and social life that came with the job. Even with the distance, he stayed in regular contact with his family, who remained a major part of his life. On the night of September 23, 2016, Corrie went out in Bury St. Edmunds, visiting bars and clubs in the town center. CCTV later showed him walking alone around 1:20 a.m., slightly unsteady but aware of his surroundings. His final confirmed movements led him into a commercial rubbish loading bay called the Horseshoe, a dead-end area surrounded by brick walls and service doors. And then nothing. No footage ever showed him leaving on foot. No sign of a struggle, no confrontation, no one else following him. It was as though he stepped inside and vanished. As investigators retraced his steps, they uncovered a detail that would shape the entire case. Around the same time, Corrie entered the Horseshoe area. A waste collection truck arrived, lifted a commercial bin, emptied it, and left. The weight recorded from that pickup initially appeared normal, so police ruled out any connection. But Corrie didn't return to his base. He didn't contact friends or family. The only clue was a signal from his phone, which traveled several miles toward the village of Barton Mills before shutting off. His disappearance triggered one of the largest and most expensive missing person investigations the region had ever seen. Detectives reviewed thousands of hours of CCTV footage, interviewed witnesses, and conducted exhaustive searches. Months later, after re-examining weight data from the refuse truck, investigators admitted there may have been an earlier calculation error. The bin collected that night might have been much heavier than first believed. This revelation fueled one widely discussed possibility that Corrie, after a long night out, may have sought shelter inside a commercial bin, unaware that a collection was scheduled. If that happened, the pickup could explain why no camera ever recorded him leaving the Horseshoe. It is a theory supported by the later inquest, though one that remains deeply painful. His family, especially his mother, struggled to accept it. She became the public face of the search, organizing vigils, coordinating volunteers, and pushing for every possible lead to be examined. To her, there was still room for doubt, too many unanswered questions, too many moments that didn't feel fully explained. Other ideas circulated as well. Some wondered whether Corrie left the area in a way the cameras simply couldn't capture, through a blind spot, a doorway, or an unexpected route. Others questioned whether an early assumption made in the chaotic first days of the investigation had sent the entire search in the wrong direction. Despite the massive landfill search, despite reviewing every trail of evidence, no physical trace of Corrie McKeague has ever been found. Today, his family lives with the ache of not knowing, caught between official conclusions and a mother's instinct that something about that night still doesn't add up. What if Corrie slipped out of the Horseshoe in a way no camera ever saw? What if the key to the mystery was hidden in the first few hours, before anyone realized he was missing? The truth of what happened to Corrie McKeague remains unresolved. Story 3. In one of the busiest airports in the United States, a 59-year-old nursing assistant walked through the terminals with her luggage in hand, ready for a long-awaited vacation. She had plans, a connecting flight, and family expecting to hear from her. Yet despite the crowds, the lighting, and the network of surveillance cameras, she disappeared into the night without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that remains unsolved. Paula del Mundo was born in the Philippines, the 10th of 12 children in a close, supportive family. From an early age, Paula embraced her identity as a transgender woman, and over the years, her family came to fully accept and celebrate her. They described her as loving, generous, and incredibly funny, someone who could make people laugh even on difficult days. By 2019, Paula was working as a nursing assistant at the VA hospital in Tampa, Florida, alongside her younger sister, Lolita. She was meticulous and organized, the kind of person who kept her apartment spotless, packed lunches for herself and her sister, and saved carefully for vacations she enjoyed. Friends and colleagues remembered her as dedicated, dependable, and deeply caring. On September 13, 2019, Paula worked a shift despite still recovering from recent shoulder surgery. Colleagues said she seemed frustrated because she couldn't take overtime, something she usually welcomed, but she was still excited for her upcoming trip. The next day, she took an Uber to Tampa International Airport and boarded American Airlines Flight 1369 to Dallas-Fort Worth, where she would connect to a flight bound for Cozumel, Mexico. Airport cameras later confirmed she exited her plane at DFW wearing a white blouse, purple pants, white shoes, and carrying her shoulder bag and yellow-gray roller suitcase. Soon after landing, Paula began sending unsettling text messages to her sisters. She said she felt lost in the massive airport, confused and overwhelmed. She wrote that she wanted to go home, that she was scared, and at one point she added, "I think they set me up. I didn't do anything wrong." She mentioned friends and family in Florida as her anxiety escalated. By late evening, Paula never boarded her connecting flight to Cozumel. CCTV tracked her moving toward a ladies' restroom, then later wandering through the warehouse and service road areas far from passenger terminals. At 3:52 a.m., she was seen walking toward a street exit, her final confirmed sighting. After that moment, Paula simply vanished. DFW airport police issued alerts and conducted searches throughout the terminals, nearby hotels, rideshare pickup areas, and airport service roads. Paula's phone was powered off. Her bank accounts, cards, and travel reservations showed no activity. Authorities, volunteers, and private search teams conducted large-scale searches using K-9 units, drones, and sonar sweeps across hundreds of acres, including Trigg Lake. They found nothing. Some investigators believe Paula may have become severely disoriented, overwhelmed by the size and layout of the airport, wandering into areas where cameras were limited or where she might not have been noticed. Others consider whether she may have suffered a sudden medical issue or injury in a remote part of the airport, one that left her unable to call for help. There is also the lingering question of whether someone could have encountered her in an isolated area, though no evidence has ever suggested a crime occurred. Through it all, Paula's sisters, Lolita and Leonore, became the driving force behind the search. They reviewed the messages she sent, retraced her steps, and flew to Texas to work directly with investigators. They participated in reenactments of her last known movements and continue to hold vigils, hoping for any sign of what happened. Friends remember Paula's warmth, humor, and kindness, qualities that defined her life and deepened the heartbreak of her disappearance. Did Paula become lost in the sprawling maze-like airport, walking into a hidden place where no one thought to look? Or did her final steps lead somewhere that remains outside the reach of cameras and search teams? For now, the disappearance of Paula del Mundo remains one of DFW Airport's most haunting mysteries. Story 4. On March 26, 2020, in the seaside village of Saltdean in East Sussex, a teenage boy left his home as the sun dipped behind the South Downs. The cliffs glowed in the warm light of early evening. Within hours, his family would face the fear that something had gone terribly wrong. 16-year-old Owen Harding was never seen again. Owen was born on May 13, 2003. He lived with his mother, Stella, and his young sister in a quiet neighborhood. Those who knew him described him as articulate, creative, and emotionally intelligent, mature beyond his years. His bedroom walls were lined with his artwork and pictures of friends. He played football with the Woodingdean Wanderers and loved being outdoors. 2 years before he vanished, Owen lost his father unexpectedly, an event that deeply affected him. The two had been close, and the loss weighed on him heavily, especially during the early days of the pandemic. Owen also had a girlfriend, Meg Wells Rhodes, who lived nearly 280 miles away in York. With lockdown restrictions in place, the distance frustrated him, and in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, he became increasingly anxious about their separation. On March 26th, emotions were running high. Owen and his mother argued about whether he planned to travel to York despite the lockdown. Shortly afterward, he walked out of the house without telling her where he was going. CCTV captured him at 6:13 p.m., heading south along Bannings Vale in the direction of the cliff tops. He phoned Meg soon after he left, explaining the argument and saying he planned to watch the sunset. Cell tower records showed his phone connected to a mast near Longridge Avenue at 6:23 p.m. A later call from Meg at 6:32 p.m. went straight to voicemail. At first, his mother believed he had gone out for fresh air, something he often did. But as the hours passed and night fell, Owen still hadn't returned. She contacted friends and family, hoping someone had seen him, and eventually notified police around 11 p.m. Authorities launched an extensive search across the South Downs and along the coastline toward New Haven. Officers visited nearby homes, checked paths, fields, and clifftop areas, and spoke with residents. But lockdown restrictions complicated the search. Some businesses were closed, and certain CCTV systems weren't accessible. Several possibilities emerged as investigators tried to piece together what happened. Some feared Owen may have slipped or fallen along the cliffs, which can be dangerous even in daylight. Others wondered whether he had left intentionally, though this was out of character and there were no signs of preparation. Search teams also considered the chance of an accident or misadventure somewhere along the downs. Despite the efforts of officers, volunteers, and the community, no trace of Owen was ever found. His disappearance left a deep void in the lives of those who loved him. Stella continued to organize searches and appeal to the public. Meg's parents traveled to the South Coast to help however they could. Friends and neighbors held on to hope even as the weeks turned into months. Did Owen's walk along the cliffs end in a tragic accident? Or did he choose to leave, leaving only silence behind him? To this day, the disappearance of Owen Harding remains one of the most heartbreaking mysteries of the UK's lockdown era. Story 5. November 1996. A quiet night on the Isle of Wight becomes the center of one of the UK's most troubling missing person mysteries. A teenage boy seen wandering the high street, a final image captured on CCTV, and then a disappearance that would haunt his family for nearly 3 decades. Damian Nettles was 16 years old, born on June 21, 1980, to parents Valerie and Edward. He has a sister named Sarah. He is a gentle, sensitive teenager known for his creativity and kindness. He was a passionate musician who taught himself to play guitar, joined a band, wrote lyrics, and listened to everything from classical pieces to the Beatles to modern music. Friends remembered him as thoughtful and caring, always looking out for people who struggled. He grew up in a loving family that often described him as compassionate and deeply expressive. Schoolmates later recalled that Damian quietly helped the underdog, sometimes even when it didn't benefit him. On the evening of November 2nd, 1996, Damian attended a party in East Cowes. His mother allowed him to stay out until midnight. He left with a friend, bought some cider, and the two wandered around West Cowes for a few hours. At 10:30 p.m., they parted ways, the last time anyone close to him would see him. In the hours that followed, Damian was spotted in various locations along the high street. Witnesses reported odd interactions, and one final CCTV clip captured him inside a chip shop, surrounded by several unidentified men. After that, Damian vanished into the night without a trace. When his family reported him missing the next afternoon, they expected urgency, but instead, the investigation suffered early and devastating setbacks. Police mistakenly recorded Damian as a 19-year-old adult and refused requests for search dogs, aerial support, or coordinated ground searches. His mother's repeated calls for help were dismissed as hysterical. Critical early procedures were never carried out. Vital evidence was lost, including the last complete CCTV footage of Damian walking alone. A second CCTV tape showing him inside the chip shop was edited, with both the beginning and end removed, including a moment where a police car passed the window. Over the years, numerous theories surfaced. Rumors spread about potential harm, accidental death, or hidden remains. A paid informant identified a location in Parkhurst Forest where he believed Damian was buried, but authorities refused to search the site or grant permission for excavation. Damian's family refused to give up. Friends and volunteers joined them in conducting their own searches, digging in remote forest areas with their own time and resources. For decades, they worked tirelessly, organizing searches, gathering witness statements, and preserving what little evidence remained. The family continues to hold out hope for answers. Vigils, awareness efforts, and community support have kept Damian's name alive. After nearly 30 years, they maintain the same belief. Damian is somewhere, and every lead deserves to be fully investigated. What if the original police response had been immediate and coordinated? What if the missing CCTV footage holds the key to what truly happened that night? Their final moments were captured, but their stories remain unfinished. Families continue to search, investigators still hope for clarity, and the footage left behind serves as a reminder that the line between the ordinary and the unexplainable can vanish in an instant. This is Vanished Stories, where the missing are never forgotten.